Here is a truth that will unsettle you. The greatest predictor of a life filled with quiet regret is not failure, but safety. The most well-adjusted, compliant, and financially stable people are often the ones who, in their final moments, whisper of landscapes unseen, songs unsung, and loves unlived. They did everything right, and that was the problem. Because a salary is not poison. It is not evil. It is anesthesia. Just enough numbness so you stop feeling the chronic, dull ache of an unlived life. You are listening to this now because you feel that ache through the numbness. This is the confession of that pain and the fragile, terrifying hope that lies beneath it. We are taught to chase the anesthesia, to increase the dose. A better title, a larger number on the payslip, a more prestigious brand of numbness. And it works. For a while. The dream you carried in your chest like a second heart, the one that beat with a rhythm of its own, does not die. It gets postponed. And, next year, becomes a ritual. A sacred, hollow religion of delay. You perform the rites. You update the resume. You save a little money. You consume the inspiration. You tell yourself the story of preparation. But the altar at which you worship is built of tomorrows that never arrive. The monthly pay teaches you a brutal form of patience. It is not the patience of a gardener tending a seed, believing in its inevitable bloom. It is the patience of a prisoner adjusting to the dimensions of his cell. You learn to wait. You learn to comply. You learn to endure the Monday morning dread, the Sunday evening gloom. You learn to navigate the politics of small offices and smaller minds. What you do not learn is how to escape. The anesthesia is too effective for that. It turns the sharp, screaming pain of a stifled spirit into a manageable, background hum. A hum you can almost forget until the world goes silent at 3 in the morning. And it's all you can hear. This is the central transaction. The one they never explain in school. You are paid to trade potential for predictability. Your wild, unkempt, glorious potential for a predictable direct deposit. Society does not need poets and pioneers half as much as it needs reliable workers. Dreamers are dangerous. They question the script. They leave their seats. A comfortable worker is a compliant one. And comfort, my friend, is the most effective cage ever designed. Chains that chafe and hurt inspire rebellion. But a cushioned chair, a good healthcare plan, a reputation for being sensible, these are bars you cannot see, and therefore, never think to touch. The system is ingenious. It doesn't need you broken, just busy. Exhaustion is a far cheaper tool for control than oppression. When you are tired, truly tired down to your bones from the commute, the meetings, the inbox that never empties, the only dream you have left is the dream of sleep. The grand vision you had for your life gets folded up, placed in a drawer, and labeled youthful idealism. You convince yourself you have outgrown it. You call it maturity. This is the slow tragedy. Security kills urgency. When your survival is guaranteed, when the rent is paid, and the fridge is full, rebellion feels not just foolish, but irresponsible. Who are you to risk this stability? Who are you to want more when so many have less? So you stay, and with each passing season, the anesthesia seeps deeper. You forget the texture of your own hunger. You confuse the numbness for peace. Dreams require risk. Salaries reward obedience. That is the real contract you signed, in invisible ink, on your first day of work. You traded the terrifying uncertainty of your own path for the certain, predictable uncertainty of a path laid out by someone else. And most people never quit their dream. That would be too active, too dramatic. They rationalize quitting. They perform a quiet internal ceremony of surrender. I am being realistic, they say. And that phrase is the adult, respectable headstone for a living thing they once carried inside them. I know this because I built that altar. I mastered that religion of delay. I felt the cushions of my cage and called them blessings. For years, I moved through the world as a ghost of possibility. my own heartbeat muffled by the consistent, reassuring thump of a payroll cycle. I was not unhappy. That's the most terrifying part. I was not miserable. I was anesthetized. I had confused the absence of pain for the presence of purpose. But anesthesia wears off. Sometimes it's a sudden shock, a loss, a diagnosis, a glimpse of a life not lived in a stranger's photograph. Sometimes it's slower, a creeping thaw you can't ignore, a feeling returning to a limb you thought was gone. For me, it was the slow dawning realization that I was teaching myself to want less. I was pruning my own desires to fit the pot I was in. And one night, in that profound silence that belongs only to the lonely hours, the truth became loud. It wasn't a scream. It was a whisper. It said, "You are exchanging your life for this. Hour by hour, day by day, you are handing over your one irreplaceable life for the privilege of continuing to do so." That whisper was the end of my old world. It was the one change. Not a resolution, not a goal, not a 5-year plan. A change. A fundamental, irreversible shift in perception. It was the moment the anesthesia failed, and I felt the full, exquisite pain of being alive and not living. It was the moment I saw the cage not as my shelter, but as my construction. This one change is not about quitting your job tomorrow. And it is about quitting the lie today. The lie that this is all there is. The lie that you are not allowed to want more. The lie that comfort and meaning are the same thing. That one change is the crack in the wall of your prison. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The light gets in. The air changes. You start to breathe differently. From that change, everything else flows. But slowly. There's no explosive montage. This is not a fantasy. This is the hard, unglamorous work of reassembly from the ashes. It begins in the quiet. It is the single sentence written after the dinner dishes are done. It is the clumsy first note of a forgotten instrument practiced on a Tuesday night. It is the savings account opened with a different name, not for a vacation, but for an escape velocity. It is the book read not for career advancement, but for soul advancement. It is the silent, patient rebuilding of your own identity, piece by piece, outside the approval of your job title. You learn a new patience, not the weak patience of waiting for your life to begin, but the fierce, active patience of a builder. You understand that suffering is not drama. It is the friction of transformation. That rebirth is not a fantasy of a new you, but the daily gritty choice to honor the old you that never agreed to this deal. The tragedy is not working for money. We all must do that in some way. The tragedy is the forgetting. It is forgetting what you were willing to die for before the first paycheck arrived. That young, foolish, beautiful heart that believed in a love, a cause, an art, a freedom so potent it felt worth any sacrifice. That paycheck did not kill that heart. It just put it to sleep. My ask of you is not to burn your life down. It is to simply quietly stop administering the anesthesia. Let yourself feel the ache. Listen to it. It is not your enemy. That ache is the compass needle of your unlived life, trembling, trying to find true north. It is the most honest part of you, and it has been trying to speak for years. Your one change is waiting. It is not a giant leap. It is a slight turn of the head, a different question asked in the mirror, a what if spoken aloud to the empty room. It is the decision to trade 1 hour of consumption for 1 hour of creation, however small. It is the courage to define a metric for your life that has nothing to do with your performance review. This is how cages dissolve. Not with a bang, but with a breath. A single, intentional breath, drawn in the direction of your own becoming. The path forward is built by the accumulation of these breaths. These small, defiant acts of remembrance. You are not alone in this feeling. You are part of a silent congregation of waking dreamers, each in their own quiet room, listening to the same truth growing loud. Keep going. Keep building. And Make your one change, and then let that change make you. The numbness will fade, and life, in all its painful, magnificent urgency, will return, and you will finally, truly begin.